Hello everybody, welcome to the channel. You're watching Windows to Heaven Art. Let's jump right into it. So I have a 11 by 14 inch canvas. This has already been toned with acrylic paint. The color that I used was some raw Sienna acrylic paint. So yeah, that's what I toned it with. It has had a chance to dry actually for a week. Now you don't have to let it sit a week. Basically just 48 hours, I guess, to be safe. But yeah, it's totally dry. That's what we want before we start painting oil on top of it, because you can paint oil on acrylic so long as the acrylic is totally dry. So, like I said, this is totally dry. We're ready to put the sketch on. And for the sketch, I'm going to use some burnt sienna oil paint. And the reference photos are pictures that I took, I believe it was last summer, during a thunderstorm. There was some really big cumulus clouds that I was able to take pictures of at sunset. So you got that really cool sunset lighting, and that's what we're going to go for. I actually have done two other paintings that are based off of pictures from that evening. And so this one is going to be a third painting I'm going to do because I just really like the subject. So let's put the sketch on and get into this video. Alright guys, I have put the sketch on. I've been looking at my reference photos and this is what I came up with. I like the composition, I like the idea. It's very simple, but now I'm ready to put the first layer of paint on. So I'm going to start with what's furthest away as always, and then paint my way forward in the composition until I end with the foreground. And I just find that doing it that way helps me keep all of the values working together like they should. So I got a color here for the sky. I'm just going to put it on here. I think that looks good. It's a good color. So yeah, I'm just going to put on the sky, and then we'll put the clouds on and paint our way forward until we end in the foreground. And the brush that I'm using here is my number 12 flat shader. I just really like this one, and I like to use it for the background sky in these paintings on this size of the canvas. Okay, it's pretty good. Now let's get those clouds in there. Okay, everybody, we have let the painting sit overnight, so it has kind of probably tacked up a little bit. I'm not going to say it's completely dry, but I'm going to start another painting session. We're going to get into some more of the nitty-gritty of the painting. We're going to develop it a little bit more, render it a little bit more, because yes, it's very basic right now. I don't even have the tree in. That's going to go on more as a detail later on, but for the modeling stage here, as we get started with that, I'm going to be using this number 6 filbert brush, and this brush, along with the brush that I used for the block-in, have been synthetic bristled brushes. I just find that for the initial stages of the painting, synthetic bristle brushes are best because they deposit less paint. So therefore, you don't have to wait as long for the paint to dry, and it just kind of works better for the fat on lean principle, which, if you don't know what that is, basically what that is if you apply paint that is really thick and is going to take a long time to dry, and then you put something over the top of that with maybe another painting session that will dry quicker than what's underneath it, it will dry, and then the layer underneath will move and dry after the top layer has dried, which can cause it to split the top layer. It's called cracking, and that can happen with oil paints if you're not careful. So I just like to, in other words, avoid that by applying less paint in the initial stages of the painting. And synthetic bristle brushes are great for that because, like I said, they deposit less paint, it can dry quicker, and it's just easier to work with your painting when you have less paint on initially. So that being said, let's get into the modeling stage, and I'm just going to say I don't really like the clouds right now. I'm not totally happy with them, so I'm just going to probably work on the clouds for a little while. I might raise them up a little bit and switch the shapes. I don't know. Let's get into it. Okay, everybody, this is the finished modeling stage. We got everything where we want it. Everything is set up for those final details that we're going to put on now. And as far as the clouds go, I am not going to add that much more detail. I'm going to touch up probably a few places where the sunlight is hitting the clouds directly. But other than that, and then maybe some shading down in here and just some more touch-ups with these lower clouds. Other than that, they're going to stay relatively the same. I'm going to put in that tree right here. That's going to be one of the biggest changes that the detail stage will add. And I'm also going to touch up the grass, but we're so close to the end, all it's going to take now is some very fine marks to finish it up. So this is an old brush that I have really grown accustomed to, and I'm going to use it for the final details. It is actually a synthetic bristle brush, but I can add a lot more paint onto it to get those impasto marks if I want them. So let's go ahead and put these details on to finish up the painting. Okay, so I am putting down details, and the painting has had a chance to dry pretty much. So as I put these details on, if I want to blend them out and kind of have them fade into the dry painting underneath, I can take this brush, which I used in the modeling stage, and it is totally clean. I can take it and just kind of feather out the edges of those details I just put on and blend them out. Just like that. Nice little trick, keeps it clean, and I like to do that every so often. Okay, everybody, I am going to put that tree on now, but to do that, I have to be thinking about the placement of it in terms of a balanced composition. For example, if I were to put the tree way over here, you'd have this big empty space here, and it just would kind of look a little bit heavy over on this side, whereas this side, it would look very light in terms of interest, so there would be an imbalance in the composition. So I have to think about the composition before I put this tree on. I already know it's going to be more over on this side, and I don't want to put it directly in the middle because, and we can go into this in more detail in some other video, but generally you don't want to place your main subject matter directly in the middle of something. So we're going to put it a little bit off center, and I'm going to put it over on this side. So I know it's going to go somewhere here. Also, I don't want to put it directly underneath this cloud because this cloud is kind of pointing up there. This cloud is kind of pointing up there. And if I put the tree, which is also going to be pointing up underneath one of those, it would just create a distracting pattern for the eye. So I kind of want to stagger everything and balance it out. And I think to do that, I'm going to put the tree somewhere in this area. So let's go ahead and do that now. All right, I've got a dark paint color, which was mixed from burnt umber, ultramarine blue, and a touch of yellow ochre. I'm going to put in my tree right about here, I think. It's going to be quite a bit darker from the other trees because it's closer. Also, let's make this stand out a little bit more over here. There we go. It'll balance it out a little bit more, I think. That is going to wrap it up for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you liked it. Leave me a thumbs up if you did. I hope you guys learned a lot. I do have one final tip before we close out this video completely, however, and that is I wanted to test my studio lighting by taking the painting into a darker corner of the house just to see how it looked. And also I brought it out to direct daylight to see how it looked. Because I know that if your studio lighting is too bright, it will cause you to compensate for that as you're painting and make the painting too dark. And the flip side of that is true as well. If you have too low of lighting in your studio, you'll tend to paint the painting a little bit too bright to compensate for the dark studio lighting. So I wanted to test whether or not my lighting in the studio is working by taking the painting to those different extremes, direct sunlight and also dark corners of the house, just to see how the painting looks. But I think I like it. It is a darker sunset, evening painting, and I like the moodiness. But yeah, that's a quick tip for you guys. Be conscious of your studio lighting. Again, thank you for watching. We'll catch you in the next video, and until then, God bless you guys. We'll see you later.